Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and we've got one spectacular show for you today. Extended service contract sales. Now, this is the most important sale in the entire F&I process. More important than rate, because rate can go away. More important than gap, although gap has a higher payout usually. Service contract is what they are least likely to cancel, what they see the most value in keeping. And it has a greater frequency of payout than your car insurance, so you pay 3 to 10 times as much for. So think about that. And one thing I want to get out really early is we do not call it an extended warranty. I have been in the car business 47 years. I've been in 1,000 dealerships, and everywhere I go, I hear people say, well, let's get the extended warranty. It is illegal to call it a warranty. It is not a warranty. The Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act specifically says that if you're going to call something a warranty, it must be, number one, provided by the manufacturer, which some of the service contracts are. Number two, it must be given to everybody that purchases the same product. Okay, extended service contracts don't meet that criteria. Everybody doesn't get one, and it must be free. That certainly doesn't make the criteria. So to be called an extended warranty, it would have to be given to everybody, it would have to be free, and would have to be provided by the manufacturer. So extended service agreements only meet 2 out of 3 criteria. So it's not an extended warranty. Now, actually, I don't like to call it an extended service agreement. I like to call it a parts and labor agreement. Now listen to my word tracking here. The words you say are your toolbox. And there are certain words that I use called semantics. Semantics is the science of using words that have a greater psychological effect. They affect people in a more pleasant way. So I call the extended service agreement the parts and labor agreements. And will you say, Ziegler, is that deceptive? No. If you go to Best Buy or any department store, they call it a parts and labor agreement. They don't call it a service contract. So that is what most consumers are used to hearing, parts and labor agreements. As a matter of fact, I have been known to call it a parts and labor program. You heard me. A parts and labor program. And sometimes when I'm down in Central Florida, where we have a lot of retirees, I will say, Mr. Customer, that includes enrollment in our parts and labor program. I enroll people in a program. I don't sell them a contract. People would much rather be enrolled in a program than sold a contract, especially senior citizens, of which I am one. You know, senior citizens would much rather be enrolled in a program than sold a contract. They enroll in everything. I know, I do. So anyway, let's see who we got in the live audience today. First of all, an old friend of mine, not physically old, but a person who's been a friend of mine for a long time. Hello, Melissa Skinner. How you doing? Turn your microphone on. Can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry, I was double teaming it here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, glad to have you aboard. Let's see who else we got in the audience. Repeat, Dave Sosnowski. Hello, how are you?
Good afternoon, Jim. Thanks for doing this again.
Did you get benefit out of last week?
I did, with the Federal Trade Commission. Definitely perked some interest and got people from their phones and perked up a bit.
How to present the menu. Let's see who else is in the audience. Now, here's a friend of mine, Jennifer Briggs. How you doing, Jennifer?
I am doing great, Jim. How are you?
One of the most brilliant women in the galaxy in the car business. I see you're working in a dealership. I see you got all your training material on the board behind you.
Always, constantly, lots and lots of training material. I'm so old school. If I don't have a whiteboard, I get lost.
Well, you got to have a whiteboard. Well, let's see what we can do here. Okay, we're going to be talking about extended service contracts, parts and labor agreements. Let's put the book on. If you don't have the F&I Mastermind book, you can purchase that book if I didn't give you one already. ZieglerAutofinance.com. It's a download. So let's take a look. Now, first of all, one thing you need to know about the extended service agreement, the parts and labor agreement, is in most states, it's negotiable. In most states are fair market value states. You can sell it for whatever the customer will agree to pay and whatever the bank will finance or the lender will finance. But that being said, you really need to have some price guidelines on how you sell the extended service agreement, because there are some nasty things that we deal with called deceptive trade practices. Now, deceptive trade practices have been categorized in three categories, basically. A deceptive trade practice in finance or in the car business in general is anything deliberately designed to confuse the customer. Anything deliberately designed to treat one customer unfairly. And different states have different interpretations of what denotes a deceptive trade practice. So when we talk about a deceptive trade practice, they come in discriminatory, prejudicial, and predatory. Discriminatory, we all know what discriminatory is: race, religion, national origin, sex, marital status. You know, there's a number of categories that we all know what discrimination is. But prejudicial, you might say, well, that's the same as discriminatory. Not actually. Prejudicial is, well, let's pretend somebody has poor credit and you are prejudicial and you force that person to take a service contract by a deceptive trade practice by telling them it's required, which it is not. So, you know, prejudicial is slightly different. You know, there's certain things you can do to leverage a customer into buying product. So prejudicial is also a deceptive trade practice. But the one that you see most times with extended service agreements, parts and labor agreements, is predatory pricing. You've got to have a standard pricing model in your dealership. Even though there are states like Florida where it is considered an insurance product and you must sell it to everybody for the same amount, it is non-negotiable. But the majority of states are fair market value negotiable states. So if you sell it for X number of dollars, and I'm not going to do price fixing in this video, but if you do it for X number of dollars, then all of a sudden you sell it to another customer for $3,000 or $4,000 over fair market value. Now, that doesn't mean you have to sell it for manufacturer suggested. What it means is you must have a set amount of markup, whether it's a dollar amount or a percentage amount. And it can be as high as you like, because one thing you can do in fair market value states is you can negotiate down. You just can't negotiate up. So everybody must be given the same price. And of course, different cars have different prices of different levels of extended service agreements. So how do you do that? You might say, well, we're going to mark this up $800 over true cost. Now, I'm not price fixing. I just use that as an example. You might have a dealership policy where every service contract is marked up $800, $1,000, I don't care, $20,000 if you think you can get away with that. But you have a set amount that every consumer would be offered, or a certain percentage. You could say, we're going to mark up every service contract 80% over cost. So, of course, you can negotiate down from there, but every customer must have the same starting price on the same service contract. Everybody got that? Melissa, did you pick that up?
Yes.
Okay, so you got a good feel for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at this fair market value. You never sell a service contract for more than the pre-established dealership markup. That's the first thing I want to get out there right now. Okay, why do I call it a parts and labor agreement? Once again, I call it a parts and labor agreement because that's what every department store, every Best Buy, everybody in the world is calling their extended service agreements, parts and labor agreements. And the more savvy consumers are used to hearing that. It's a value perception. You know, people say, well, Ziegler, some of these extended service agreements are $2,500, $3,000. My gosh. Well, let's put it in perspective. An automobile is 15,000 high-tech component parts. Automobiles are anywhere from $30,000. The average today is in the 30s. If you go to bankrate.com, I forget the exact number, but the average amount being financed today is over $30,000. So when you're looking at $30,000, $100,000 vehicles, my pain management doctor drives a $250,000 McLaren, for heaven's sake. I mean, there's all sorts of different prices of cars, but a washer and dryer from a department store, an $800, $1,200 item with 3, 4, 5, 10 moving parts at most. A parts and labor agreement is $25 a month. And when you start putting that in perspective, when you got a $1,200 item, what is $25 a month for 6 years? All of a sudden you say, wait a minute, my service contract is a bargain. you know, so you put it in perspective. You know, if a wash and dryer pair costs $2,000, you know, now one of the key things of years ago, I was the F&I school for Ford ESP service contracts. I was on all their videos. I was traveling around the country doing F&I schools for Ford ESP. And, you know, it was amazing. And one of the things I would always do, I would turn to the camera and hold up my own Ford ESP service contract on my own vehicle. So one of the best closes on a service contract is I've got one on my own car. I use it. I believe in it. You need it. You're not leaving here. If you're one of my relatives, you'd never leave here without it. If you were one of my personal relatives, I would never allow you to leave here without this protection. You know, now, one thing I'm going to caution F&I managers, and I know we got some salespeople selling service contracts today, but no matter who is selling the service contract, one thing I want to point out to you is do not sell from an exclusionary brochure. I see some of the worst presentations in the world, the terrible service contract presentation. Well, it covers everything on the car, but these few items. Excuse me, you don't tell them what it doesn't do. You tell them what it does do. You tell them what it does cover. You know, that is so devoid of empathy and customer satisfaction. I mean, when I was working with the Carnegie Group years back, create a word picture of your client using your product, enjoying your product, and benefiting from your product. Mr. Customer, the parts and labor agreement covers all internally lubricated parts of the engine, including the pistons, the bearings, the timing chain, the water pump, and I build bigness. You don't build smallness. Well, it covers everything with the tires and the rubber hoses. Don't tell them what it doesn't cover. Tell them what it does cover. Build bigness. Make it more valuable. Create a word picture of your client using your product, enjoying your product, and benefiting from your product. Make it bigger than it was. So when did you get that, Dave? Dave's got his book. So anyway, you build bigness. Do not sell from an exclusionary brochure. Don't tell the customer what isn't covered. Tell them what repair groups are covered. All internally lubricated parts of the transmission, including the torque converter, and get into everything. You're not going to read them every little minuscule thing it covers, but read them the headlines. Tell them what they do get. Build overwhelming value in the customer's mind. Not reading them a bunch of us, and manufacturers don't get that. When I was working with Ford ESP service contracts back in the day, I would have to tell redesign these brochures. Now, there's another concept when you're selling a service contract. And by the way, with the menu, lock in the service contract first. It is the most durable sale. It is the one sale that when you lock it in, it's the thing they are least likely to cancel. This is something they were least likely to become a chargeback later on. So think about that. Don't tell them what's not covered. Tell them what is covered. Tell them what they do get. Don't tell them what they don't get. I'll play on my technology here a second. Give me a second and get that mouse where I need it to be. Okay. How do I do that? Okay, I'm playing with some new technology here. Just give me a second. Jennifer, what are you getting out of this?
I can't believe they even make exclusionary brochures. That seems like so counterproductive for actual. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it sounds so logical, but obviously it's an issue.
Well, you got to remember, most of these people have never sold a service contract. They've never sat in our chair. They've never done what we do. So when I started redesigning Ford's brochures back in the 80s, when all this was going on in the 90s, it was we. And the other thing is, Ziegler, and I knew Ziegler. He's no relation to me, but he's pronounced his name. He used to tell me I misspelled my name. His name was spelled a little differently. But I knew Ziegler, and Ziegler said, and this is really cool. He said, "A confused mind always says no. A confused customer always buys nothing." So one thing that I see in a lot of the brochures that we have out there today is you've got the basic plan, the powertrain plan, you've got the intermediate plan, you've got the premium service contract, all in the same brochure. All of your service contracts are on the same brochure, and the customers get confused. A confused customer buys nothing. So what you want to be sure you do is, I like to predetermine what I'm going to sell the customer. I've already investigated the customer. I got a good feeling on what they will buy, and I'm going to present one service contract to that consumer. I'm not going to present a whole lot of options. I'm not going to show them the powertrain, then show them the intermediate plan, then I'm going to show them the premium plan. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show the customer the plan I selected. And by the way, I generally sell them the premium service contract with the most coverage. 6-year, 7-year, 100,000 miles, premium coverage. Now here's your word track, Dave, Melissa, Jennifer, get you ready for this. This plan most nearly mirrors original factory coverage. Listen to that word track. It most nearly mirrors original factory coverage. And by the way, don't call it a bumper-to-bumper service contract or a bumper-to-bumper warranty. It doesn't even cover bumpers. So, it's a bumper-to-bumper warranty. No, it's not. Get out of here. Okay. Here we go.
Last week you mentioned it completes your warranty, mirroring your factory coverage too.
Right. Don't call it a wrap. No.
Right.
You know, I hear people all the time. Well, it's a wrap. A wrap? What is that? Snoop Dogg? I mean, come on. A wrap? Come on. What do you mean? It's a wrap? You know. No, it's not a wrap. It completes your warranty. We have a program, and that would be like your FCA dealers that have the 100,000 mile powertrain. I see a lot of people saying, "Well, we can sell you a wrap," and we use car slang. It's not a wrap. We have a special program that completes your warranty, almost nearly mirroring original factory coverage. You know, you got to remember, car customers don't talk car slang. They don't get what we're talking about. Okay, here's the clincher. Is it really a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty from the manufacturer, or a 5-year, 50,000 mile on some of them? Is it really? Most consumers today are driving a lot more than 36,000 miles in 3 years. So in other words, it's a 2-year warranty for many, many people from the manufacturer, and you've got an obligation for at least 60 months. A 60-month contract with a bank averages upside down inverted equity, negative equity for 3.8 years. I don't even know the statistic how long you're upside down on a 72, and an 84-month contract isn't a contract, it's a wedding. I mean, you married that car. And so guess what? When you got an 84-month obligation, and you're probably going to be upside down in negative equity for 5 or 6 years of that obligation, and you've got a manufacturer warranty that runs out in 2.5 years because you used up the mileage first. It's not a 3-year warranty or a 5-year warranty in most cases. You know, so with 20% of our loans today over 72 months, and I don't know how many are approaching 84 months, if they're driving more than 18,000 miles annually, they've got a 2-year warranty from the manufacturer in most cases. You know, and the manufacturer warranty, Mr. Customer, only covers the lowest risk period of ownership. Now listen to this. This statistic is really cool when you say it the right way. Listen to the word tracking I'm about to use. Mr. Customer, during the first 3 years of the average car's lifetime, 70% of repairs are under $150. However, during the second 3 years, more than 70% of the average car's lifetime repairs will be more than $850 in the second 3 years. Now, notice I used years and not miles in that example, and you must say it that way. During the first 3 years of the average car, now the average car today is over $30,000. We're talking new vehicles, we're not talking pre-owns. During the first 3 years of the average car's life, 70% of the repairs are less than $150. The manufacturer is not really rolling the dice on the factory warranty. And when they give you 100,000 miles on the powertrains generally, you know, we're seeing 200 and 300,000 miles on some of the powertrains today. That's not a roll with the dice for the manufacturer either. So when I tell a customer, sir, you know, you've got 3 years from the manufacturer, but 70% of the repairs are going to be less than $150. The high risk period of ownership is that second 3 years, starting at 42 months. Somewhere around 42 months is the highest part of a car's repair curve. And you can talk to your service manager about that and get some more statistics to back that up. There are items like water pumps, air conditioners, compressors, alternators, power motors, electronics, high-tech computerized components, Cars today are computers that on wheels. Excuse me. Cars today are not repairable. That's one thing I always tell a consumer in the finance office. What do you mean it's not repairable? Cars are modular. It's like those laptops where you had all these laptops. You don't know where those laptops ended up. You've probably had 10 laptops in your ownership period. You don't know where all those laptops are because you don't repair them. You throw them away. They're modular. And cars are the same thing. The dash components, especially, now listen to this, liquid quartz crystal computerized digital instrumentation display systems. Repeat that back to me, Melissa.
Right? That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah. Mr. Customer, the most expensive repair on an automobile today is the instrument cluster.
Yep.
And the instrument cluster is highly computerized. You know, any one of 9 onboard computers is a $1,500 to $2,000, $3,000 replacement item. Transmissions are, you've got to know the dollar amounts that it takes to replace items in the car. You've got to be able to drop these in a conversation. So the liquid quartz crystal computerized digital instrumentation display system, I've had a lot of Corvettes. I've had probably 9 Corvettes in my lifetime of owning cars. And the 1984 Corvette had the most spectacular, it was a terrible Corvette, but it had a spectacular dash. I mean, you sat in that thing, you thought you were sitting in a pinball machine. I mean, lights everywhere. And that dash was about a $5,000 replacement. And you notice General Motors doesn't do that anymore. So anyway, so, you know, you're looking at the first 3 years, 36,000 miles, limited expense. The second 3 years, a lot of expense. Okay. Now, women. God love women.
Huh.
I'm not going to talk as a generality about women because Briggs would be all over me and Melissa would be clamming me. Now, I'm not going to say, but as a generality, many women distrust service departments. As a generality, I'm not talking about everybody. I'm not being sexist, but we know statistically that a lot of women have expressed that they don't trust a service facility, any service facility. When I'm selling a service contract to a female, to a woman, there are certain things I want to bring out in that presentation. One of them is you never have to negotiate the price of the repairs with a service facility. We do all that in your behalf. You never have to guess what the pricing is going to be. We will handle all of the negotiation with the service facility. When you have a parts and labor program, a parts and labor agreement, you'll never have to worry about whether they've performed unnecessary repairs. You know, did they do something they really didn't need to do? Were they deceptive? No, you don't have to worry about that. Not that service facilities are always going to be doing that, but you never have to worry about that. They will never use counterfeit parts and assemblies. Now, that is extremely important. You know, especially there is no service contract provider, independent or captive. No service contract provider will allow a service facility to install counterfeit parts. Now, I will tell you, now listen to my word tracking, it's very important here. All service contract providers, be it independent or manufacturer backed, requires factory authorized replacement parts. Now, did everybody understand what I just said? Manufacturer authorized replacement parts. Now, Jennifer Briggs, would you assume that means a brand new part?
I would, yes.
Well, au contraire. It actually, with, say, Ford Motor Company's service contract, or ESP, they allow a rebuilt water pump, if it's been manufactured, rebuilt, to be installed as part of a warranty repair or a service contract repair. Did you know that? That's a factory authorized replacement part. Now, a Fram oil filter is not built by all the manufacturers, but a Fram oil filter is a factory authorized replacement filter for many. And the manufacturer has agreed that that's factory authorized. So the word factory authorized is not the same as factory brand. Everybody needs to understand that when I say that. All service contract companies, independent or manufacturer backed, they generally always insist on manufacturer authorized replacement parts, not counterfeit parts. And counterfeit parts generally get people's attention when you say that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got trip interruption on most service contracts today. If you break down away from home, and the consumer say, well, I'm a mechanic, or I have a mechanic. Well, what if you broke down in Disney World this summer when you're taking your family, when you finally broke out of the COVID lockdown and you got down to Disney World and your car broke down in Orlando? Do you have a mechanic down there? We do. And it's covered under your parts and labor agreement. This is a national plan. That is a big thing that I have to stress to the consumer. You might have a local mechanic. And if your local mechanic is certified, we'll pay them. Because now that's not with a manufacturer-backed parts and labor agreement, by the way. If it's a General Motors plan, they generally want you to have it repaired at a General Motors shop. But if you're selling an independent, they will pay your independent mechanic, your personal mechanic. Okay, let's talk about this. Is one of my best things I ever invented. Dave, are you getting good value so far?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Fantastic. This is going to be the strongest close I ever invented for selling service contracts on pre-owned vehicles, selling VSC, vehicle service contract, parts and labor programs on pre-owned vehicles. Whether the dealer is offering some amount of warranty or not. This is my strongest close. You want to see this, Briggs?
Yeah, I'm leaning.
Do you really? Okay. Here it comes. Somebody tell me what this is.
Implied warranty buyer's guide.
It's the buyer's guide. It's got to appear in the back of every used car you sell. This is one of the greatest tools for selling an extended service agreement, a parts and labor agreement on a used car, and most F&I managers just sign this thing off. I want the sales professional to bring me the original off of the used car that they actually selected. Okay, understand. I want to see the exact one from the window of the used car they bought. I want the sales representative to bring me the buyer's guide from the exact car they're buying. And by the way, I want it printed on both sides. We talked about buyer's guides. I was teaching a class yesterday at Northwood University for general managers, and we're talking about buyer's guides, must be printed on both sides. And some people are not. So I want the sales representative to bring me the buyer's guide. And this is what I'm going to tell the customer about the buyer's guide. Now, Mr. Customer, the manufacturer has given you a limited warranty, implied warranty, whatever, full warranty. We'll pay 50% of parts and labor, for the first 90 days, whatever warranty the dealer has put on the used car, no warranty at all, as is, however you have sold the vehicle, that's the first thing I'm going to review with the consumer. Mr. Customer, I'm going to say to the customer, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, what do you understand the warranty on this car to be? What is your impression of the warranty that we're giving you? What do you think we're giving you? Then look at this. Does everybody, and this is an actual buyer's guide, does everybody see where it says service contract about halfway down the buyer's guide? Melissa, had you ever looked at that before?
I actually have not looked at the small print on one.
Well, you need to, because I'm going to tell the customer. Now, Dave, make notes here. Mr. Customer, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, pay attention. I'm required by law to disclose this to you.
Ah.
A service contract is available at an extra charge on this vehicle. I've checked that off. And I'm required to tell you that a service contract is available. Would you please initial that statement that I checked that off and I didn't withhold that information from you? As if I would.
I love that.
You like that? Okay, a
love
service contract is available in this vehicle. That's printed on there by the federal government. I didn't put that on there. Think about this. This form is a federal government form. Mr. Customer, and I tell the customer, do you remember from last week, Dave, what the disclosure is? This is a mandatory disclosure required by the Federal Trade Commission. When I show the customer the buyer's guide, the first thing I say is, Mr. Customer, this is a mandatory disclosure required by the Federal Trade Commission. Pay attention.
Right.
This is a mandatory disclosure required by the Federal Trade Commission. And that is a 100,000% true statement I just made. It is a mandate. And then I get down to the service contract is available in this vehicle at an extra charge. Please initial that I told you that. So there's no misunderstanding. I disclosed that to you. Now let's look at the back of the buyer's guide. This is where it gets really interesting. The first sentence on the back says, below is a list of major defects that may occur on used motor vehicles. That was put there by the federal government. And they list nearly 100 items, Mr. Customer, that commonly fail on pre-owned automobiles. I'm required to disclose this to you. The federal government has listed nearly 100 items that commonly fail on pre-owned vehicles. Now, Mr. Customer, Briggs, are you paying attention?
Jim, I'm actually in Viato right now looking at the back of mine as you're going over this one. I'm totally paying attention. I got you side by side.
Am I accurately presenting this?
You are. Like Melissa said, I guess I've never really even looked there. So I'm like, hang on, let me make sure mine look the same.
Now look at that. Look at that one sentence at the bottom. The biggest print on the entire thing says important. The federal government wrote the word important on the back of here. The information on this form is part of any contract to buy this vehicle. Holy poop. Look, this document is part of your contract. It becomes part of your sales contract. So when you sign this, it says customer signature right above it. Mr. Customer, the federal government has listed nearly 100 items that commonly fail on pre-owned automobiles. By your signature affixed, this becomes part of your sales contract to buy the vehicle that you have agreed to self-insure on these items should you not purchase a parts and labor agreement. Self-insure. Remember that from last week, Dave? Self-insure. Mr. Customer, by your signature affixed, this becomes part of your contract. By federal government just put, I didn't say that. They made it part of your contract. It's a mandatory disclosure. By your signature affixed, You're agreeing to self-insure on these items should you not purchase a parts and labor agreement. Mrs. Briggs, how strong is that?
That is crazy strong. I feel like, how have we missed this? And so many, I mean, yeah.
Isn't it really something?
It is amazing.
This is the best close I ever invented. And I know other people are using this close now. I've heard it's seeped into some other F&I schools, but I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt I invented this close. And Dave, what do you think?
In my experience, I mean, we always went over that, but it was almost something that you wanted to avoid because you didn't want to give the customer doubt in purchasing the vehicle itself. It was almost like, yeah, it's there, but I don't want to pay too much attention to it.
But the word self-insure, when you tell a consumer they're self-insuring, which is a true statement, you remember, I believe in the service contract. I believe in it. You need it. And if you were one of my personal relatives, you would never leave here without it. Remember that close. If you were one of my personal relatives, you'd never leave here without it. So anyway, the parts and labor program is one of the strongest things we sell. And, you know, this is unbelievable. Now, here we go. Let's go over some common objections. Mr. Ziegler, I had a service contract on my last car and I never used it. Well, that's great, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. Hopefully you never need to use it on this car, but in the event that you do, chances are it'll pay for itself many times over. Now, Dave Sosnowski, let me ask you a question. Are you a married man or a single man?
Married with 3 beautiful daughters.
Okay. Have you made any provision to take care of your family in the event of your untimely death?
I'm worth more dead than I am alive.
Oh, what do you got? Life insurance?
Yep.
Did you have it last year?
Few policies, yep.
So you had the life insurance last year, you paid for it. And are you pissed off you didn't die?
It's one policy I hope I don't need to use.
But you're not sitting here complaining that you didn't die.
Money.
But you're complaining you had a service contract and didn't use it.
Good point.
Does your wife have car insurance?
Yep.
Are you complaining to the insurance agent that you didn't have a head-on collision last year?
Nope.
But you paid 3 to 10 times as much for the car insurance as you would ever pay for a service contract. So once again, you see the value I'm building in the service contract. I had one on my last car and never used it. Well, you had life insurance. You never used that either. And you're not pissed off you didn't die. And by the way, if they don't have a sense of humor, don't even go there. You know, read your customer. Read your customer, please. Okay, here we go. Hopefully they're laughing right now. Okay. I trade my cars frequently. I probably won't keep it for the complete term of the loan. Mr. Customer, our coverage is extremely flexible. As a matter of fact, this program is designed for people just like you. You only, with a service contract, you only pay for exactly what you use. Now, everybody listen very carefully. Service contracts are refunded pro rata, based on miles or term, whichever the greatest percentage of has elapsed. Unlike other insurances that are refunded based on the rule of 78ths, where you pay a lot in the beginning and a little bit at the end.
Or table plan.
Exactly. With a service contract, the refund is based on miles or term, whichever the greatest percentage of has elapsed. So in other words, if you used up more of the miles percentage-wise, the refund would be based on miles. But if you use more of the term and less of the miles, then the refund would be based on term. If you had a 5-year, 50,000-mile parts and labor agreement and you used 4 years of it, that means you have used 80% of it unless you used 80% of the miles. So you would get a 20% refund. So, Mr. Customer, with a parts and labor agreement, it's too much money. No, sir, it's not too much money. Matter of fact, what it says right on the contract, $2,500. Mr. Customer, that $2,500 is a fictitious figure. What do you mean it's fictitious? Right there on my contract. Mr. Customer, that $2,500 is only how much you would pay if you kept it for the full 7 years or the full 100,000 miles. Because any unearned part of the premium is refunded to you or the bank and comes off your loan. You will never pay for any amount of the parts and labor agreement you didn't use. You only pay for exactly what you use as you use it. The only reason we built additional miles and term into it is because it makes your car more valuable when you sell it to a private party, should you do that. A transferable warranty makes your car infinitely more valuable in every one of the 3 major books that we value used cars. So, in other words, by having excess miles and excess terms, which you're never going to pay for, you have a car that's more valuable because it has a transferable service contract. And most service contracts, I can't think of one that isn't transferable to the next owner. So you can transfer that coverage to the next owner and sell it with the car. Makes your car more valuable. Let's take a look. Well, I'll take my chances. How many times have I heard that? Well, Mr. Ziegler, this car is a Honda. Mr. Ziegler, it's a Honda. Your salesman just stood out on the parking lot and told me this car could take a direct ground zero nuclear hit. And now you're telling me my car is going to break. Yes, sir. Your Honda is 15,000 high-tech component parts: plastic, metal, rubber, glass, space-age materials, welded, stapled, riveted, glued, fused together by human beings and robots. Some of these parts moving to speeds in excess of 10,000 RPMs, less than 3,000th of an inch of clearance, 1,000th of an inch of lubrication, rubbing and abrading against each other, creating high levels of heat with more than 1,000 times the computer memory we put Apollo 11 on the moon with in 1969. Repeat that back to me, Melissa.
Yeah,
I was
I
just
was
you to
in my
repeat
head,
it.
man, I wish my mind would go that fast.
I'm going to say it again. I've said it so many times. Mr. Customer, your new Honda is 15,000 high-tech component parts: plastic, metal, rubber, glass, space-age materials, welded, riveted, bolted, fused, glued together by human beings and robots. Some of these parts moving to speeds in excess of 10,000 RPMs, less than 3,000th of an inch of clearance, 1,000th of an inch of lubrication, rubbing, abrading against each other, creating high levels of heat with more than 1,000 times the computer memory we put Apollo 11 on the moon with in 1969. If we built this car 98% perfect, 300 parts would break. If we built this car 99.9% perfect, 15 parts would break. That word track is in the book. Matter of fact, it's right there. Let's see, here it comes. Memorize that word track. That word track, I've had customers sit there and watch me do that word track, and they're dumbfounded. I've had customers sit there and go, damn.
I'm pretty sure that's what I was doing.
15,000 high-tech component parts: plastic, metal, rubber, glass, space-age materials, welded, bolted, riveted, fused, glued together by human beings and robots. Some of these parts moving speeds in excess of 10,000 RPMs, less than 3,000th of an inch of clearance, 1,000th of an inch of lubrication, rubbing, abrading against each other, creating high levels of heat with more than 1,000 times the computer memory we put Apollo 11 on the moon with in 1969. You get that word track down, you got it synced. I've had customers just burst out laughing when I did that. I mean, part of being a great F&I manager is having a great sense of humor and making the customers share that experience with you.
Yes.
You know, we built a great car, but if it was 99.9% perfect, 15 parts would fail. It's our willingness to stand behind the cars we manufacture that makes it so valuable. here we go. Will you only pay for exactly what you use? Well, Mr. Ziegler, I got 3 years to buy this parts and labor agreement. I can buy this anytime in the next 3 years. Yes, sir, that's absolutely true. I mean, you can buy this parts and labor agreement anytime. Well, it's under factory warranty. But you know what? I've had 3 price increases this year. And a parts and labor agreement is a hedge against inflation. You're paying today's price for tomorrow's price of repairs. You're locking in against inflation. Since World War II, which I wasn't here then, since World War II, parts and labor have gone up 70% every 7 years. Now, by the way, that is not equally 10% per year. Some years it jumps 25%, some years it didn't jump anything. But parts and labor have increased about 70% every 7 years. So in other words, if you've got an air conditioning repair today that is $1,000, that same air conditioning repair 7 years from now, while you're still under parts and labor agreement, is going to be $1,700. So, but you paid today's price and locked in against inflation. So it is a hedge against inflation. That's another thing you want to tell the customer. But not just did I say it was a hedge against inflation, I gave them a valid example that can be mathematically proven. Over 50% of today's repairs are drivability problems. I had more than 9 Escalades since 2000. And one of my Escalades, I was driving down the interstate minding my own business and the car shut down. I mean, the car just shut down, the engine stopped, and I drifted off to the side of the road. Today's computers will shut down a car that has a drivability problem. You're going to need towing and you're going to need a rental car. A great percentage of our cars, I'm not going to stick with 50%, but a great percentage of our cars today come in on the hook. So you're going to need that rental car, you're going to need towing, you're going to need it right now. With parts and labor going up 10% annually. Okay. Now, there are certain things that are covered under a parts and labor agreement that are not covered under the factory warranty. Now, this is really important. Let's see here. Here we go. All manufacturer warranties cover defects in materials and workmanship, and that's all they cover. Understand it. I've had arguments with Honda and Toyota dealers. All warranties from the manufacturer cover defects in materials and workmanship. But most service contracts, not all, read your contract and be sure before you say this. Some of them cover 2 things that even during the factory warranty period that the factory warranty does not cover. And that is consequential damage. Consequential damage is damage to a non-covered part caused by the failure of a covered part. Most extended service agreements cover that. All factory warranties do not. Consequential damage. I'll give you an example of consequential damage. Okay, your brake calipers on your ABS brakes are pulsating faster than a hummingbird's wings move. See my graphics there. Okay, they're really fast. Damn, that's fast. And it breaks. Okay, if the caliper breaks on, that's a defect in material and workmanship. If the caliper broke on my brakes, that's a factory warranty repair. But it scored the rotor and disintegrated the brake pads. Those are non-covered parts. Extended service contract would cover and factory warranty would not. Everybody sees non-covered, factory warranty covers materials and workmanship. And by the way, between you and I, the factory would be so embarrassed they would replace the brake pads and they would replace the rotor, but they don't have to. Everybody got that. I mean, it's not in their contract. So consequential damage is covered under most service contracts, I've seen some that didn't, but most service contracts do cover coverage to a non-covered part damaged by a covered part's failure. And the other one is wear and tear. McPherson strut suspension doesn't wear out, it doesn't break, it wears out. There are wear and tear items. Wear and tear is not covered under factory warranty. Alternators don't break, they wear out. There are wear and tear items that the manufacturer warranty does not cover. So wear and tear and consequential damage are covered under most service contracts, are not covered under most manufacturer warranties. Well, I've got a friend that's a mechanic. What? I think I covered that already. Well, great. Let's see if your friend will cover this vehicle. You know, we'll pay your friend. We will pay your friend to repair the vehicle if we have an independent service contract. Okay, well, Mr. Customer, what if I offered you $2,500 for your warranty and bought it back from you? What do you mean? I'll give you $2,500 today and buy back your factory warranty. You want to buy back my factory warranty? Yeah, you'll leave here today with no warranty, but I'll give you $2,500. I wouldn't do that, even though the average repair is under $150. So you must think that second 3 years is really valuable. You know, I've challenged customers that way in the past. Well, I'm a mechanic myself. Oh, great, Mr. Customer, you're a mechanic. I am so glad you're here. We're having trouble with this new mid-engine Corvette. Would you show us how to fix that thing? So anyway, Mr. Customer, my dealership every year has to buy $30,000 of specialized tools that only fit this year's model. Do you have a set of those at home, Mr. Customer? We did have a set stolen. Yeah. Do you have a set of those at home? Yeah. Yeah, but let me see if you got a set of those. I've got one on my own car. And then the final close, Mr. Customer, I've heard all the reasons you don't want the parts and labor agreement. You want to pass on this protection. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. Customer, I believe in it. You need it. If you were one of my own relatives, I would never allow you to leave here without purchasing it. That word track is the strongest word track you will ever use. If you give me any opportunity, I'm going to make an aggressive effort to sell it to you. Now, that's my presentation on extended service agreements. Let's go around the room a second before we sign off here today. Melissa Skinner, what'd you get out of that?
Wow, a lot, but the buyer's guide just really blew me away because I do those all the time, and I can't believe I didn't even pay any attention to that. That's crazy. And then the locking in parts and labor ahead of inflation. That's an amazing close. So I got a lot out of it. That's just two off the top of my head.
I threw a bunch of closes in a short 1 hour, didn't I?
You did. I got a whole, got 3 pages of notes.
Dave, what'd you get?
Well, I think I got about 7 pages of notes. And the buyer's guide for sure. I'm not even thinking about that more strongly on a pre-owned vehicle, because even selling Toyota, I always carry the current model year warranty book. And I talk to people all the time. They know the books are in the glove box as sales and F&I people, but they never grab them and read them. And it'll show right in there what is not covered and incidental damages, incidental consequential damages associated with the vehicle failure. It's all right there.
Doesn't cover consequential damage. That's a Toyota. I'm
correct.
You. Most people don't realize consequential damage is not covered under factory warranty.
And this ain't nothing I'm telling them. This is right in their book in their vehicle.
Exactly. But all service contracts or most service contracts cover consequential damage during the factory warranty period.
That's a strong application for it.
If you live in Michigan, as some people do, and you got a snowbank and you spin the tires and burn up the transfer case, that is excessive wear and tear. I have seen service contracts pick up the transfer case because they spun their tires in the snowbank. But the factory warranty wouldn't.
Right.
Let's see what Briggs got out of this. Jennifer Briggs.
I feel like a slacker because I only have 3 pages of notes right here, but I feel like these are all really good notes.
What did you get?
I think even just taking it back to the very beginning with the parts and labor program.
Yes.
I'm using that from now on.
Now this package is our platinum package. It includes enrollment in our 7-year, 100,000-mile premium parts and labor program.
Yeah.
And when I'm disclosing the contract, and I'll say, Mr. Customer, and as we discussed previously, I'm going to teach that in coming weeks. That's one of the strongest closes when you're doing a contract. As we discussed previously, this contract does include enrollment in the 6-year, 100,000-mile parts and labor program. Part of my contract disclosure, as we discussed previously. Okay, what else you get?
Well, I like I said, I think you saw me getting distracted. Like Melissa said, the buyer's guide. I mean, it's been 10 years for me where I was actually responsible for programming the printing of all the buyer's guides. So I really feel like I really overlooked a huge tool for us by not really giving that the emphasis and utilizing it in our F&I offices.
I think I gave you some pretty good stuff here, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, this has been a great session. I really wanted to give you guys value, and I think I delivered. Next week, we're going to continue on selling the other products, GAP and your environmental protection package. I'm going to get into all the other things. Mike Daniels, he said, very strong word tracks, great training. Thank you so much. I look forward to next week. Mike, really glad to have you. And anyway, you guys have a great day, okay?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye,
Jim.
everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.